You may want to also get in touch about what my next guest has to say, because after 4 months of long and fiery battles in Parliament, peers voting 5 times to scupper the plan, last night the Lords finally gave in to the will of elected MPs, and the government's flagship Rwanda Bill will now finally become law. Rishi Sunak said this morning that nothing would stand in the way of getting flights off to Rwanda. Some might say famous last words. Well, joining me right now to discuss this, delighted to say from Westminster, is former Home Secretary, Conservative MP Suella Braverman. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Julia. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. Well, the Prime Minister says nothing is now going to stop these flights taking off. Do you think flights will take off?
Well, as I set out back in the autumn and indeed at the beginning of this year, I'm afraid I do not believe that this bill will stop the boats. That's the pledge that the Prime Minister and the government made to the British people. That's what the British people have voted for and expect of their government. And that's the test of whether this latest Act of Parliament will work on it. It's our 3rd Act of Parliament, and I'm afraid it doesn't go far enough to actually do what's necessary to stop the boats.
So there may well be flights taking off, but it's not going to make a blind bit of difference to actually whether the boats are still turning up. And as you say, the pledge was stopping the boats, not getting a flight off to Rwanda or even 20 flights off to Rwanda. What, if you were still Home Secretary, what would you be doing right now to actually tackle that pledge, stop the boats? What would actually work in your view?
What really needs to be done? And I've seen this, and I base this opinion on my time before an MP, working as a barrister in immigration and asylum law, my time as Attorney General, and then what I saw as Home Secretary, is that we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, and we need to do it now. It's no point putting it in a manifesto, which on current polling we're set to lose. It's no point having another referendum. We've had enough of those. What we need to do is take back control of our laws and borders, finish off the job of Brexit by leaving the European Convention on Human Rights and legislating to actually exclude some of the claims that we're going to see, many of which will be spurious and which will only operate to stop flights, to stop the government controlling its borders.
Even if we did do that, and there'll be many in my audience, including myself, who would support that, if we did that, that's not necessarily going to stop people wanting to come to this country. There are lots of pulls to this country. We don't have identity cards, for instance. People might have English as a second language. They may already know people who are here. Lots and lots of people will still want to come to this country. What are we going to do about that? How many of the people who've already got here would you plan, if you were Home Secretary again, or indeed maybe one day leader of the party and Prime Minister? What would you do about the tens of thousands of people who are already here and we're paying millions, even billions a day to look after?
Well, many of the people who have arrived, tens of thousands of them, have been in very recent months and years, and they're still in limbo, actually, because of the backlog of cases. So I would want to do something which meant that many of those people could be put on flights and deported to Rwanda. I believe Rwanda is a safe country. I believe in the principle of the scheme of sending illegal migrants away to Rwanda. I've visited Rwanda on several occasions, and it is a safe country. Rwanda is a partner in this fight against illegal migration. But the problem that we've got is our laws here, our human rights frameworks, our lefty lawyers and our courts and judicial activism. We saw at the end of the year how the UK government was defeated in the Supreme Court because of human rights claims brought against us. We saw in June 2022 how the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg blocked the flight from taking off. So it's a combination of our legal framework and the litigiousness in this area that is stopping us from sending people away who shouldn't have the right to be here. Treating them humanely, treating them with compassion, but they don't have the right to be in the UK.
We spoke a little bit earlier to an immigration lawyer, Ivan Sampson, who said, look, the real solution, and we hear this from Labour a lot as well, is we need to talk to the French, we need to talk to the EU in Brussels, we need to do a deal with them. We're not going to be able to deal with this on our own. When you were Home Secretary, how much time, how much effort did you put into trying to get the French to tackle this issue more at their end, or to get the French, for instance, to agree to take back migrants who were intercepted in the middle of the Channel? Were there actually conversations about things like that?
Absolutely. I put a lot of effort into building a good relationship with the French. I speak a bit of French, and so I was able to do it in their own language. But we got more operations on the French side. I think it did. I think my opposite number in France, the Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin, and I got on very well, and we had a really good collaborative relationship, actually. And that's as a result, we got more gendarmes on the French side to be working on the northern French coast. We got more interceptions. We got a bit more technology and intelligence sharing,
but not enough
to prevent the boats from leaving. Not enough ultimately.
But isn't the solution that anyone intercepted in the Channel, if they were intercepted by whether it's French Coast Guard, British Coast Guard, Navy, RNLI, whoever it is, that they would just simply taken back to Calais? Message would get out very quickly, loud and clear. If you get in a boat, you're not going to end up back in Britain. You're going to pay 3 or 4 grand to a people smuggler, and you're just going to end up back on the same beach. The French could agree to that. It would stop people rocking up and camping at Calais in these huge big tent villages. It would be in their interest as well. So why don't they agree to that?
In theory, it would be a solution if the French agreed to take back the people on the boats. They won't agree to
Why
it.
not?
They don't believe it's politically expedient from the French side. They don't want to do it. In a way, this is very convenient for the French. The illegal migrants are leaving France. They're no longer a problem for France. But I agree with you on the point about Calais. Calais is a magnet. The Pas-de-Calais region has been adversely affected by many illegal migrants travelling, straight to Calais with a view to coming to the UK. If they were not able to get to the UK, they wouldn't go to Calais in the first place. And if you talk to regional government figures in Calais, they're very frustrated with the problem of illegal migration because it's ruining their agriculture, it's ruining their tourism industry, it's really damaging the local economy in the Pas-de-Calais region. So I do think there is a joint interest for France in actually taking returns, but they won't do it.
Are they? Is there also an element where
they've been intransigent on that point?
Is there also an element where Emmanuel Macron is being deliberately intransigent because he wants to punish a Tory Brexit-supporting government? Constantly told by Keir Starmer that all we need to do is talk to the French. There seems to be a view with him and Yvette Cooper, the Shadow Home Secretary, that as soon as if they win the next election, they get into office, they're just going to have a quick word with the French, and the French will get this all sorted because they'll have good relations with them. Is this just basically a punishment for Brexit?
Well, I think that demonstrates extreme naivety on the part of the Labour Party, that they think that they can just go pick up the phone to the French and over a cup of tea, the French will just agree to take migrants back on the Channel. It's not that simple. The UK government has been asking for this for years of the French, and the French have flatly refused. So I don't think Keir Starmer will have any particular powers in breaking open that deadlock.
Can I ask also about a conversation we had a bit earlier with the Reform UK deputy leader? We know Reform squeezing the Tories on the right-hand side. Ben Habib and I were talking about what their policy would be. He said, pushed it quite a long way. He basically said, we should basically let people drown. I'm paraphrasing, but basically, if we push the boats back, if they won't go back, then we don't help them. And I said, well, what if someone punctures the dinghy, people jump into the water? He says, we shouldn't infantilise these people. They've chosen to get on these boats. They know the risks. We shouldn't rescue them. I pointed out that it would be a duty of care to rescue these people. He said, well, no, he thinks he wouldn't have to rescue them. That it would be reasonable to not rescue these people. Would you agree?
Well, I don't agree with allowing people to drown on the Channel. I do agree that there are basic duties that the lifeguard, the Coast Guard, Border Force owe to people in distress. Any vessel in distress, there is an essential duty to intervene and try and save life. And there's an international convention called Saving Life at Sea, and I believe in that. And I do think it's any mariner's basic duty to try and save life at sea, whoever's life that is. And we don't want to see more tragedy on the Channel. I do ultimately believe the solution is to be able to offshore this challenge and send people to Rwanda. I believe we've got the framework of the solution. I think that's why we need to ensure it actually works, because that's how we stop people dying in the Channel. That's how we stop people getting in dinghies. That's how we break the people smuggling gangs. If they realise that coming over the channel illegally into the United Kingdom will not lead to a life here. That they will not be able to gain our system. They won't be able to stay in a hotel for years. They won't be able to lay down roots. They will be swiftly removed to Rwanda.
Okay.
That's the outline of
And
the
again,
solution.
I think a lot of people
would
support
like
that.
us to actually deliver the law to deliver that.
If they thought that would happen on the grand scale that envisaged, then I think people would support it. But a lot of people think that it won't actually happen on the scale enough to provide that deterrent.